Welcome into another edition of the Draft Academy podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Kravitz, joined this week by former NFL defensive lineman and current ESPN personality, Booger McFarland. Booger, thanks for taking the time to do this. Excited to dive into it with you today.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine.
So you've really found a groove in the broadcasting world, and you do a little bit of everything too, college football, NFL. When did you fall in love with the media side of sports?
For me, it actually happened years ago, man. When I was, growing up in Louisiana, a bunch of buddies of mine, all we did was sit around and talk about sports all day. Who was better, Michael Jordan or Clyde Drexler way back yonder? We used to have all kind of fun debates and just talk sports, and that's kind of what we did because there was not a lot else to do in the town. And so little did I know that was kind of the precursor to what I was going to be doing after I got done playing football. So I've always been a people person. I enjoy talking to people. It's fun for me to have healthy conversation, debate sometimes. Like sports are a fabric of our society, and so it's always been really, really cool for me to do that. Doing it on TV, never really thought about it. It kind of came about kind of by happenstance. Television and from TV, SEC network, and so on and so forth. So it's been really, really cool because I get a chance to just kind of be myself and have fun and talk football, and I get a chance to do it with a lot of great people.
You said it happened by happenstance. Was this something that you planned on getting into before your playing days were wrapped up, or like you said, did you kind of trip into it? How did that come together?
Well, when I was playing with the Bucks, I did a local player show once a week for a few years. That led to making some contacts. And when I got done playing, 3 or 4 years went by, and then I get a call one day from a buddy of mine, like, "Hey, CBS is going to start a sports station here in town. We're going to do a full lineup of radio shows. Would you like to audition?" Like, sure, let's do it. Never really thought about it. Audition. Started doing middays in Tampa on CBS with Todd Wright, and that led to an opportunity to audition for the SEC network, which got me on doing raps with them, pre-post game halftime, Dari Noka and Greg McElroy, and so that's kind of how we got started, and away we went from there. And once you get inside the company and you become eager to do more. That led to doing national radio with Mike and Mike, and from Mike and Mike, that led to, being up in Bristol and being in ESPN more. And, the more you can do, the better. So I've been very fortunate enough to do a lot, do studio, do radio, NFL, college, you name
it. So do you live up there now because you're on so frequently, or do you fly up for weekends? How exactly does that work?
No, I just fly schedule? I just fly for weekends, man. I have a setup here at my house. So I can do things at home during the week. And so usually on the weekends, I'll fly up and be in the studio Saturday and do NFL primetime with Boomer on Sunday.
It's a real commitment to not living in Connecticut, and I can understand that.
Well, I don't do cold weather, so there's no chance I'm ever going to live in Connecticut.
I was telling you before we tapped record, it's 50 degrees in Orlando today, and I got a long sleeve shirt on, so I feel like a wimp, but like this stuff comes out of nowhere that I can't imagine how the people in Connecticut are feeling.
That's part of it, man. That's why I can't do it up there, man. Like 50 up there is a great day. 50 down here, people
right.
They got leather boots and mink coats on in Florida.
So I don't know if this is a sore subject or not, but the Booger Mobile, I got to ask you about this. It was a life short-lived. Whose idea was it? And were you bought in from day one?
Yeah, management wanted to try something different, man, innovative. As you can see, sports are changing. Back in 10 years ago, everybody had cable. Now everybody's got apps. So sports are ever changing. And so it was just an idea to try and let's see if we can do something different. We've already had field analysts before in college football. So let's kind of do the field analyst thing, but take it up another notch. And so, yeah, I was all for it, man. I think all great ideas at some point have to be in the kind of novice phase, and change is never easy. So, but yeah, it was a fun deal, man, just because it was new and we were kind of breaking ground of something that never had been done before. So it was fun.
I liked it, but it seemed like it was, I don't know if it was just because the internet chooses something to pick on, but it seems like it was criticized more than it was beloved. And I guess ultimately that's why it went away. Is that Is that the way that you perceive it as the person who is actually operating the actual idea?
Here's the one thing I've learned in the last 10 years. Twitter is a small minority of America, and the internet is a small minority. I think by and large, if you look at the numbers that Monday Night Football did, I mean, 15, 20 million people a night, I would say it was pretty successful.
Well said. And you're right about Twitter. You played for Tampa Bay from 99 until 2006, and you saw a very real turnaround within that organization. What changed? When did you realize that things were different in Tampa?
Well, it kind of started before I got here. I got here in '99, but even before then, the foundation was already laid. Tony Dungy had come in and changed the culture. He got Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp and John Lynch and Hardy Nicholson and all those guys to buy in, and the foundation was laid. And we just kind of needed to continue to build. I was fortunate enough to be a part of a really, really good defense. We had a lot of lunch pail guys that went to work. Even our stars went to work. And then, so it really wasn't at one moment. It was a shift in culture. And I think Tony Dungy and Monty Kiffin and that whole crew kind of started that. And we just added pieces over time. I was a piece. When the Glazers felt we needed to change offensively, they brought in an offensive head coach, and we kept adding pieces until, we were able to win it all.
The last guest on this podcast was Brad Johnson, who would have been a teammate of yours, of course. How could you explain his approach, his work ethic, and his leadership?
He's a doer. He's not a talker. He's a guy that's going to get it done. And we'll talk about it afterwards. But Brad is the ultimate lunch pail guy, and rarely do you get quarterbacks who are that way. And I think his demeanor fit right with our team because we were a defensively led team. But we had a blue collar quarterback, and so everything kind of fit together. I don't know if it would have worked if our quarterback would have been a prima donna, and Brad was anything but that. He's still a great friend today. He's somebody who he's the ultimate team guy, the ultimate worker. He's from the South. He gets it. Went to Florida State, and so like everything kind of fit with what we were doing. You often hear people say you got to get the right guys to fit in the locker room. You got to get the right guys to fit what you're doing. And I think Brad is a classic example of getting the right fit for what we were trying to do and who we were and what we were building here in Tampa.
And he's a trick shot specialist now, so he's added that to his repertoire. I don't know if you've seen those online.
Yeah, I saw a few of those. Like we all got things, I like to get out and play golf. He does trick shots. Like everybody has to have a little something, I guess, in their post-career life.
For sure. And yours, I think we're watching play out on TV. For the Bucs, do you think that they lost their way at all until Brady came into the fold? It seemed like he sort of reestablished that belief within the organization that you can win in Tampa.
Well, I don't know if the Bucs lost their way. It's a quarterback-driven league. You got to get a quarterback. They went through years where they were trying to find quarterbacks, and the Josh Freeman and all the way down, and just never could. And Tom Brady comes, and it's amazing. Tom Brady gets here, and all of a sudden now we're winning. And, now comes Baker Mayfield, and they're still winning. So you got to have a quarterback. So I wouldn't say they lost their way. I just say that they couldn't find a quarterback, and once they found one, you saw the winning start to go. People look at football, and it's the ultimate team sport, but it's a team sport that has to have a leader out front. And the head coach is really not the leader. The head coach is he is the guy who kind of orchestrates it. The leader of your team is the quarterback. Like that guy is like, if you got one, he changes the mood in the locker room. He changes the personality in the building. He changes your belief in what you do every day because you know that you can compete with other teams. And so I think the Bucs were searching, and I think now that they during the Tom Brady era, they found one, and things got back to normal as far as winning. During the Baker Mayfield era, things are on the up and up. The Bucs are winning, and I think that's the ultimate end all be all in this league. If you have a quarterback, then probably going to have a chance to be pretty good. If you don't, then chances are you're not going to be.
Sometimes it is that simple. Let's talk about training and performance. It's the reason we brought you here today. Booger, give me one thing that you always gravitate towards in the gym. What's the first thing you do when you walk in, whether it's now or if you wanted to harken back to your playing days?
Well, I think now it's totally different. Like back during the times that you play, players just want to get in and get it done as far as the meat and potatoes. And I think now there was so much emphasis put on that. There wasn't as much emphasis put on the prehab part and the warm up and the cool downs and all those different things. And so like nobody wanted to do those things back then. It was like, hey, how many sets of squats I got today? How many power cleans? Like those were really the dynamic lifts, bench, power clean, squat. That's what people really did. And we ran like 100-yard sprints. What's amazing how training has changed now, where you see guys, it's so much more. It's a lot of single leg stuff. It's a lot of isometric stuff. So single leg load, single arm load, because the body works as individuals. Like rarely ever are you going to see 2 feet together, shoulder width apart, pushing. And so I think the biggest difference in training now is we went from a lot of Olympic lifts to a lot of isometric, single leg, half body, single part of the body. And I think over years, we finally realized that's how the body works together. And I think there's been so much more emphasis put on hip mobility, shoulder mobility, core, spine, like all those different things that we never even, those are words that were never mentioned. If you want to do core, like do 20 sit-ups. Well, now there's so much more. And I think training has evolved just like life has. And so I don't do all those things now, but I know about them. And so even now, in my older age, my cardio is the Peloton. But when I'm lifting weights, I don't touch a bar. It's all dumbbells. It's single arm. It's single leg. It's step ups. It's lunges. It's things that put your body in the movement in which you're going to do each and every day. And I think that's what I try to do now. And in the large part, when you're playing, you got to try to put your body in those positions to put it under stress in those positions. And I think if I were a trainer now, yeah, do we need to bench press? Sure. We probably bench press maybe once a week, probably twice a month. But other than that, everything I would do with the body would be singularly isometric focus. It would be a lot of hip mobility, a lot of core, a lot of stability exercise. Those would be the things that I would work on minimum 3 times a week. And maybe 2 times a week, we would do something from the standpoint of like loading and pressing and stuff like that. But man, when you watch the game of football, it is a series of isometric movements throughout your body. And I think that's where training needs to be now.
I've talked to people in the past that have said that they would suggest that if you're at the high school level, you do some of those more basic lifts, just simply building up your strength as you're sort of growing into your body. And then when you get to, and I love the way that you put that with the sort of reality-based training and actually working out in the same way that you use your muscles when you play. Does that make sense, the sort of progression of the way that you work out, that if you start at the high school level, you're simply just trying to build mass, and then after that you can start to really isolate what you actually need in order to be successful?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would even start earlier. It's like I don't think that a kid who's under the age of 13 needs to touch a weight. I think when you're 11, 12, and you're starting to get into it, it should be bands, ladders, movement stuff, speed based. And by speed, I mean foot speed, stretching, a lot of band, a lot of resistance, a lot of plyometrics. So you shouldn't at 12, 10, 11, 12, even 13, you shouldn't be putting a squat bar on your back. Push-ups, sit-ups, all those things I mentioned would be great. Once you start to be, 13 headed to 14, now we can start to do full range of motion squats, full range of motion bench press. Because what you want to do is train the muscle not just to be strong, but to be long. And so, yeah, you do those things. Range of motion is important. And between 13 and 17, you're right. You can start to build that base, which is why I said, yeah, would I squat? Sure. We squat 2 or 3 times a month. But in large part, we're going to be doing a lot of Bulgarian squats, a lot of single leg step ups, a lot of single leg lunges, a lot of RDLs, a lot of, we're not going to lay on our back and do hamstring curls. What we're going to do is put our back on and put our feet up on a medicine ball and do hamstring curls that way, because I want to load the hamstring with body weight and then use it. So it's so many more things. And I'm telling you all this stuff. I've learned it. One of my best friends is Joe Murphy. Like, his life's passion has been training. That's what he does. I've learned all this stuff from him. And just, throughout, learning my body and learning what works. If I had to do all over again, I literally probably wouldn't bench press at all. It would be heavy dumbbells, like core presses. I would do some Olympic lifts. I do think some of the lifts that really kind of helped me was doing split jerks, snatches, cleans. When you can move an absorbent amount of weight at a fast pace quickly, I think that helps the body train also. So it's been fun kind of keeping up with it and kind of watching people who still train. I go to the gym and just kind of watch these guys every now and then and see what they do. And just kind of sometimes wish we had the advancement back when I played that they have now.
What kind of advancement did you end up experiencing? Because I imagine that even back in your playing days, there was a difference between training at LSU and then training in the NFL. Do you remember how that changed as far as the way that trainers approached getting ready for a season or getting ready for games?
Well, college is so team-based, and the college strength coach kind of runs it all. The NFL is like, we're a bunch of individual contractors. And so, yeah, you can come to the facility and work out, but a lot of stuff, like, you got to be willing to do on your own. Like, that's the biggest deal. Once you get past your rookie year, then you got to start to figure out what works for your body. Because, yeah, NFL teams have strength coaches, but it's not like everybody's there every day. And if you're depending upon the strength coach for you to get ready, then unless you're living in that town and you're there every day, then you're probably doing your own thing. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned. Were there some advancements? Sure. But I think the biggest advancements that I've seen have probably been in the last 10 years. And so I got done playing in 2007. So like in the last 10 years, like the advancements in training and what you do, and you got the catapult system that measures speed while you're practicing. Like we never had none of that. Like we just, like all these coaches now, man, my team is tired. Well, how do you know? Well, that's what the science says. Well, okay, well, you know what we did? We just lined up and just worked our way through it. Like it's so many different things now that coaches, and don't get me wrong, I do think there's a place for science in football. I think there's a place for all of that. But I think football is so different because it's a sport where you have to put your body under ultimate duress early and build up that conditioning physically, mentally, all the way around. That way, when you call on it in these games, it's there. And sometimes the science and analytics doesn't necessarily put you in a position to do that, because it's always saying, how can I make sure that this body is ultimately 100%? In football, once the season starts, you're never going to be that. And I think that the people that are, prime example, if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they have the hardest training camp of anybody. And they're going for 3 Super Bowls in a row. I don't really think that I don't think there's any like secret formula. Work hard. We're going to put our body under the duress. We got a hard training camp. We're not concerned about, man, the body says it's too much load this day. No, the Andy Reid is old school. And I think that's the reason that they're going for their 3rd Super Bowl in a row.
You know, one of my alarm bells went off when you were talking about some of the difference between training at the college level and training at the NFL level, and how it becomes more like your individual full-time job as opposed to something that you do as a team. We're always in the media, always trying to figure out how can these great college players turn into these extreme busts at the professional level. There are obviously more factors than this, but it seems like this would be maybe the biggest one, that if you go from working out as a collective to, okay, you're on your own now, and some guys don't have that personal drive, whereas they'll follow along with the team and stay up to date with their fitness. Did you see that, or do you see that as a reason why guys sometimes go from great college athlete to falling off as pros?
Yeah, and then you add to that, now you're rich. You got money in your pocket. So
Right.
is there
That's
really
the
a
other
work
factor.
ethic to go and do all that? Sure, I think that's a part of it.
Yeah.
But those guys are weeded out pretty quickly. Like those guys who don't take their job seriously and don't take their training seriously, over the first couple years, they'll weed themselves out. Like there's a reason that the average age, the average career is three and a half. I think it's moved up maybe to 4 years, but it's not any more than that, because those guys who don't take it seriously and don't prepare the right way, those guys are weeded out.
Yeah, and it's hard to get. I mean, and I do think we're seeing that less and less because it's just so hard to make it to the NFL if you don't already have that work ethic. It seems like every athlete has this aha moment when they realize that they can't eat fast food and candy every day and remain in tip-top shape. Did you have one of those moments in your playing days when you realized that age has become a factor and now you need to treat the nutrition part of your profession differently?
You know what? I really didn't, and we just worked so hard. I was fortunate enough. I played football, high school in Louisiana, college in Louisiana, and pro in Florida for the first 7 years. Last two in Indy, and so all those places, man, it was hot. So we were outside. So I was very fortunate enough. Like we worked hard. We worked outside. I burned a lot of calories. And so I wasn't in a place where you just kind of sit around and pack on that winter 10 and winter 15, because
Right.
we were outside all the time in those places. Um, but the one thing that I always, like me and my buddies always talk about now, that I tell these young guys, every year you play after year 3, you should drop 2.5 pounds, 2.5 to 5 pounds every year you play. Now, and that's to a certain point, but especially linemen. If you're a 310-pound guy as a rookie, by the time you get to your 5th or 6th year, you should probably be 290, 295. Like you need to drop some weight. Why? Because carrying that weight around just becomes bad on your joints. It becomes tougher to move. It's not as healthy. If you look at some of the best players in this league, man, look at Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. On a great day, he's 6'1", 285, maybe. Like you don't have to be 340 to play. Like if you just look at the norm, like speed. I tell guys all the time now, size and weight is overrated in pro football now. It's about speed, elusiveness, quickness, mobility, bend. Can you change directions? Don't get me wrong. You have to be adequate weight. Okay, you can't be
Yeah.
110 playing. But like once you get to an adequate spot, that's where you need to be. It's all about movement. The game is less physical now, so you don't have to be as big. You need to be able to move and move at a really, really high rate.
Yeah, I think of like I think a lot of people look at least in the past looked at a guy like Reggie White, who was this massive human being, as like that's what you had to be on the defensive line in order to be successful. And you're right, Aaron Donald has sort of changed the game. Reggie never felt like he dropped weight, so I think he's sort of that was maybe before that would have become a trend. Or did you see him
No, but
get
yeah,
smaller
I
over
mean,
time?
listen, like Reggie's an all-time great.
Yeah,
Like there are outliers. I'm not talking
of
about
course.
the guys who are like most of the guys that were Hall of Famers. Like those guys are great, whatever. Right? But there are very few of those. If there's 2,500 players in this league at one time, what are there 7, 8, 10 Hall of Famers at one given time? So
Right.
like the 97% of the guys kind of fall into this category. Like once you get past year 3, so the guys that are between year 3 and let's call it year 10, like those are the guys that I'm speaking of. Like you got to start, because the only way you're going to get longevity. I played 9 years and I was fortunate, but the only way you're going to get really true longevity is to take care of your body. Cold tub, hot tub, prehab, rehab, like all the things that become monotonous. And what happens is it becomes time consuming. You don't want to do it because it's 4:30. You've been at work all day. Rather than take another 45 minutes to go cold tub, sauna, stretch, treatment, whatever, you're like, man, I'm gonna get out of here and go home. And these young guys, I'm gonna go play the video game, and I'm gonna go do this. We're going. I'm gonna go home, take a shower, take a nap because we're going hang out later on. And you just have to realize that this is a job that is no different than going to Google or Apple and you're clocking in at 8 and you're leaving at 5. That's what pro football is.
Yeah, well said. And that is the most consistent message on this podcast. He played in the NFL for 10 years, and these days he's one of the most likable and knowledgeable analysts that you will find. Booger McFarland, thanks so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man, enjoy it. Pleasure's all mine, buddy. Have a good one.
Back at it next week with more from the Draft Academy. I've been your host, Brandon Kravitz. Till next time.